Hey guys, welcome to episode 6 of Girls in Grace. I'm Cheyanne and I'm actually here alone tonight because I'm going to be sharing with you guys a little bit more about obsessive compulsive disorder, something that you're all very curious about and want to learn more about. And I've gotten so many messages saying, I'm so intrigued, tell me more about this, what are the types, what's going on, how do I learn more about this? And so I'm so excited to share with you guys tonight a little bit of an inside scoop of what obsessive compulsive disorder is. Again, I'm not going to get to every single thing that I can tell you about. I'm not going to get to every therapy. I'm not going to get to every type. But I am going to go over a lot of the main things that I've seen with obsessive compulsive disorder, as well as a lot of the therapy that has helped me. So I first want to start off with, what is obsessive compulsive disorder, right? A lot of people nowadays use the term OCD very lightly. We say, oh, I'm so OCD because I clean, or I'm so OCD because my pens have to be in a straight line. But that is actually not really what OCD is. If you do have OCD, you might do those things, but there is a compulsion, an obsession behind that is forcing you to do those things, right? And so I'll get more into that in just a minute. But obsessive compulsive disorder, you have obsessions and compulsions. So you have obsessive thoughts about something, and from that you have to do compulsions. Some people have more of the thought side, right? So that would be pure O, having obsessive thoughts that you cannot get off of your brain, ones that will actually really make you have a hard time going through your day, going through your tasks, because you are so obsessed over this thought. The compulsive side is having to do something or else, right? So if I don't put these pens in a straight line, I'm going to die in a car accident tonight. If I don't close the door 4 times, open it 4 times, and then lock it, my mom is going to get sick. If I don't wear 7 masks and hand sanitize my hands 8 times in between every time going out, I'm going to get COVID, and everyone else I know is going to get COVID. These are obsessions turning into compulsions, right? You have to do something in order to relieve this scary thought that you're having. I don't want my mom to die, so as my compulsion, I'm going to lay out 7 pens, and they're going to be in perfect order. And because I did that, that means that my mom's not going to be sick, or my mom's not going to die. So that's a good example of compulsions. Obsessions are more thoughts that you get that you can't get off of your head, right? So for me, disease OCD is one of them. So with COVID being around, it's been scary because it's like, oh my gosh, like, okay, I have a cough. What if I have COVID? What if I gave it to my grandpa? And then if my grandpa dies, no one ever is going to forgive me. I'm going to have to move to Africa because everyone's going to hate me. And, and then you just kind of go from there, and then you just obsess. And you obsess until you can know the truth, right? Because it is a fear-based mental health issue. So until I can see that negative test, I'm going to have these obsessive thoughts until I can see that negative test. But little do you know that that's actually making it worse, and I'll explain that a little bit later when we go into therapy. As far as the types of OCD, there are tons. I'm going to briefly go into a few of them. The first one I want to talk about is harm OCD. This is a very common one. Harm OCD is when you have the continual fear that you may harm yourself or someone else. So you could get a thought in your head, if you are out shooting with family, oh my gosh, what if I just turned over and shot my brother? Or what if I just turned over and shot someone random? So you get that thought in your head, right? Some of these thoughts are normal thoughts that we all get. These are normal thoughts, average thoughts that every person will have run through their head, right? But for someone with OCD, that thought can't just cross our mind and us be like, well, that's not true. Obviously, it's just a weird thought. Keep going. Our mind has to take it as, oh my gosh, because you had that thought, it is true, and you are a horrible person. I always explain it to people like this. If your body and your brain was a house, okay, and you have an alarm system, if your alarm system goes off when a burglar comes in, that's when normal time an alarm comes off, right? So you're going to jump up, you're going to be scared, you're going to take all the precautions, you're going to try and protect yourself, fight or flight. But with someone with OCD, their house alarm goes off when a bird lands on the roof, when a dog walks by their house, anything like that. So someone with OCD, their alarm goes off all the time, constantly, with different thoughts that aren't actually going to come true, that aren't real thoughts, that aren't true thoughts, their brain starts to alert them that it's time to fight or flight. And they feel like everything's falling apart and they have to figure out what's going on and they have to get an answer at this moment. But really, that's not what they have to do. Again, I'll go into that a little bit later of what the opposite of that is. But that's just an idea of you to see the two different sides, right? So, a normal person can freak out and get scared about real things that really scare them. And someone with OCD gets scared and obsessed over silly things. So, for example, like going back to harm OCD. I know somebody that had children. When they had their kids, their OCD was really bad. Again, it's really bad with change, right? So for them, they had change because they had children. And when they had children, this thought, what if I just got up in the middle of the night and killed my kids? Okay, obviously they're not going to do that. And again, it could be a thought that passes through everyone's minds, like, what if I ever hurt my children? Or what if I ever did something wrong like that? Or what if I ever got up in the middle of the night and hurt myself? These are all thoughts that people get. But for us, with someone with OCD, we get stuck on them because we think it's true. And so this can be really, really hard for someone because they will live their days out. They will live their nights out constantly fearful for some reason that this thought is true, that what they're thinking is true. The next is pure OCD. These are ones without visual compulsions, like I talked about earlier. These are ones that you don't have to tap the door, line up the pens. You don't have to do something in order for the thought to go away. These are mental compulsions, checking, making sure, do I really feel this way? Is this really something I would do? But what if this? But what if that? That's pure OCD, right? Relationship OCD. I talked about this in my personal story. This was a really hard one for me a few years back. When I get into a relationship, I start to really get scared of, is this the right person for me? And what if it's not? And what if I marry this person and it's the wrong person for me? Again, normal thoughts that every single person has. But the difference is every single person can get those thoughts and say, oh no, I know this person's right for me. And then they move on. But with someone with OCD, you feel like if you get the thought, what if this person isn't right for me? Then it must be true that the person's not right for you and you're not supposed to be with them. And so then you're fighting this battle of, no, I love this person and I feel like this is the right person for me. But then your mind's saying, but what if it's not? And then these are clashing against each other and you literally cannot think straight because you can't decide what is reality and what is your obsessive compulsive disorder. And it's really, really tough. Another one is sexual orientation OCD. You guys, some of these I'm going to get into are tough to talk about, but sexual orientation, obsessions and fears about your sexual orientation. If you know that you are straight and you see someone that is pretty and you think, wow, they're pretty, and then you think in your head, oh, because I thought they were pretty, that means I'm gay. That's not true. That just because you think someone else is pretty doesn't mean you're gay. But then if you get this thought in your head, your mind starts to truly believe and go into fight or flight because you want to prove to yourself and to your brain that this thought isn't true, right? You want to do it, so you want to try so hard to prove to yourself this thought isn't true. But the more you're trying to prove to yourself that this thought isn't true, that thought keeps coming back and fighting against you saying, no, this isn't true. This isn't true. But what if it is true? Well, no, I like men. But you did look at her and say she was pretty. No, she's very pretty. She's a pretty girl. I wish I looked more like her. No, I think you actually like her. This is what goes on in your head, right? So you start fighting against each other. The next one is pedophilia OCD. Whoa, people hear that and they're like, whoa, what does that mean? This is an unwanted, obsessive thought that you might harm a child. Again, you would never harm a child. You would never harm a child. There's something different between it. Someone that would actually harm a child isn't going to think about it and get scared, right? They're just going to go do it. But someone that obviously it's an unwanted obsession is going to get this thought in their head either while they're babysitting or they're out at a park or whatever it may be. What if I were to hurt that child or touch that child inappropriately or whatever it may be? And so then it's like you get that in your head and then your actual brain's like, that's not true. I know that's not true. No, but what if it is? But what if you would do that? Because you don't know. You might want to do that. Do you really want to do that? I think you might want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. What are you talking about? And then it's just a back and forth. And again, with OCD, someone with OCD, it never leads to actually doing those things. You would never actually do it, but it's just you having to live with the thought of the what if that really is detrimental to your brain. I've got religious OCD. So repetitive fear that you'll be punished for blasphemy. What if I blasphemed? What if I'm not a strong enough Christian? What if because I lied I'm going to hell? What if? We have contamination OCD, like I talked about, the fear of germs or diseases, scared that I get this, like I'll feel like a bump on my leg. I'm convinced I have cancer. I can't stop thinking about it. I obsess over it. I freak out about it. Or with COVID, there's been times where I'm so scared and so freaked out that what if I have COVID? What's going to happen? Responsibility OCD, fear that your actions or non-actions pose a risk to others. So sometimes someone with responsibility OCD will do things and act certain ways because they feel fearful if they don't do this certain thing or act this certain way that something bad is going to happen to someone that they love. Existential OCD, obsessions with philosophical questions that you don't know the answers to. So getting so beyond obsessed over a philosophical or even a theological question that you don't know the answer to, and you feel like if you don't get the answer, then there's no point to life because you don't know the truth. And so your brain, again, can't get off of that. Suicidal OCD, fear of acting on thoughts of suicide. Every single person, and I would be very interested to hear one of you say that you've never had the thought in your mind of suicide. Whether you were going to do it or not, even if you weren't going to do it, we've all had the thought of suicide in our head pass through it, right? We're on a tall building and you thought, what if I jumped off? Obviously you're not going to, but that thought comes in your head. Someone with OCD would say, well, because I thought that, I'm suicidal. I must be suicidal and I must want to jump off the ledge. And it's funny because someone that knows you knows that you don't want to do that. And they just tell you, well, why are you thinking that? Stop thinking that. Like, we know you're not going to jump off. But to you and your brain, again, your alarm's going off, right? It's your fight or flight. You feel like it is real. You feel like maybe you would do that. Metaphysical contamination, fear of objects or people that remind you of a past traumatic event. So these are just things that you're trying to avoid, you're trying to get away from because they're physical things that remind you of something traumatic in your life. So I don't know, whether it be a t-shirt or a house item or a water bottle or anything like that, something that you avoid. And if you see it, you get so obsessive and fearful of those things. So if this water bottle reminds me of something that happened in my childhood, I'm going to be so fearful of water bottles, right? Because I don't want to have to relive what has happened in my past. Guys, those are just a few, those are most of the types of OCD, but just a brief overview of them. Again, very interesting stuff here. Not every OCD sufferer suffers with each of these. I don't suffer from each of these. I suffer from certain ones. And again, only certain ones pop up in certain seasons of my life. And so for me, I've had to learn how to handle that. And so I'm going to go into and explain to you guys how I've dealt with it. Again, Maddie and I have talked about, the do's and don'ts and how you can get help and things like that. And again, it's really what is best for you. That's what you have to decide. Okay. Because for me, I take medication. I'm very open about that. A lot of people are against it. A lot of Christians are against it. And again, if that's what you feel is best for you, then do it. If that's what you feel is best for you, you need to consult your doctor, consult your family, consult your friends, seek counsel, and decide what is best for you. But as far as therapy, I would highly suggest it. And I'm going to go into the therapy that has pretty much changed my life. So the therapy that's changed my life is called exposure therapy. Exposure therapy, like I talked in my last video that I did by myself, is say you're afraid of spiders. It's the equivalent of them putting 1 million spiders in the room and making you sit there. So for example, let's say that you have the thought that that because you thought a girl was pretty, that you're a lesbian, or if you're a male, if you thought a guy was good looking or jacked or whatever, that you are gay. But that's not true, but that's what your brain's thinking. For someone with OCD, your initial reaction is to fight it. That's not true. I know that's not true. And here are the examples why. I had a boyfriend. I like guys. I think that guy's cute. And so you start trying to convince your brain that those things are false, right? But in the end, that's only going to make it worse. And I know that it sounds counterproductive. It sounds like, no, you just have to convince yourself it's not true. But actually, you guys, it's just crazy how your brain works. But with OCD, the more you try to convince yourself that the thought's not true, the worse that it's just going to keep coming back around and around. You might get it away. You might feel calm for a minute, but then maybe the next day it comes back even harder. So really what exposure therapy is this. I am going to be so open and honest with you guys, and this is really hard for me. But I talked about in my last video that when I was in college, you know, living with roommates, my girlfriends would walk by and I'd be like, oh, she looks cute today. And then this thought, well, because you think she looks cute, you're a lesbian. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. Like, and then I'd start fighting it. No, I like guys. I like, you know, I have a boyfriend and I want to get married to a male, and that's all I've ever thought about, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm trying to convince myself. So when I found exposure therapy, what she had me do was, I know this is crazy, but I used to, when I would watch Grey's Anatomy or any other shows, if there was any lesbian scenes, I would fast forward or close my eyes. Not because oh, it's wrong, but because I didn't want to watch it, because I didn't want to be triggered. I didn't want to start thinking, oh my gosh, that's you. You must, because you're watching this, you like girls, right? And so for exposure therapy, she would actually make me sit and watch those scenes from Grey's Anatomy or those scenes from other TV shows where girls were kissing. And I know that sounds so weird, but you guys, I can watch those now and I don't get these thoughts because I have been so exposed to it. I'm teaching my brain, I can watch this, and I can accept the fact that, oh, yep, good one, brain, because I'm watching this, I'm a lesbian. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Glad, and I just agree with it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm a lesbian. And then my brain's like, oh, she agreed with me. She's not trying to fight me, you know? And so then it just kind of goes from there. It's like, okay, well, then your brain starts to get used to that it's not something to be scared of, because as soon as you freak out, your brain's thinking fight or flight, right? But the more you teach your brain that it is a normal thought, right? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, I thought that thought. Okay, sounds good. I'm just going to go on with my day. Your brain's learning, oh, I don't have to freak out about these little things. I don't have to jolt because, oh my gosh, this is happening. Does that make sense? And again, this is all very interesting and very confusing at the same time. And if you have time, read into exposure therapy. But another thing I tell commonly to people is they feel like they're scared they didn't lock the door. If you feel like you're scared you didn't lock the door, don't go back to it and check it. Just don't. If it's like you never feel that and you one time forget, you know, go check the door. But if every single day you lock the door, you walk to your car and you sit in it and you get this thought, what if I didn't lock my door? You have to get in your car, start the car, and drive away. And the more you keep doing that, the more you keep not doing the opposite of what your compulsion does, right? Because if you go check the door, you're going to feel relief, but then the next day you're just going to do it again. And so the more you do the opposite of what your brain is telling you, so you don't check the door and you leave and you don't come back, when you continue to do that over and over and over again, you're teaching your brain that this is something that I don't have to fight or flight, right? Same with the lining up the pens, right? Oh, everything has to be in a straight order, and if it's not, I'm going to get in a car accident. Okay, well, we're going to mess up all the pens, we're going to walk to our car, and we're going to drive home. Because we are so afraid, our body is in fight or flight, and we are going to be so anxious this whole drive home. But as soon as we get home and realize that we're safe, our brain, again, is going to start learning that this is not something to fight or flight about. Same with relationship OCD, you know. Oh, okay, you know, okay, yeah, I hate him. I don't want to be with him. Yeah, I don't like him at all. Nope, don't like him. You're teaching your brain, just because you get the thought that what if this isn't the right person, and then you accept it, doesn't mean that that's true, right? So you're teaching your brain, it's not time to fight or flight. It's okay. These are normal thoughts to have. And so going through a lot of that therapy has helped me so much, you guys. And I have to reuse those tools every single day, right? So I get a thought in my head about COVID or anything like that, and I just have to tell myself, okay, yep, sounds like it. Yep, good one, brain. I'm going there with you. Or if I start to have anxiety, okay, I am not going to be scared of anxiety. I'm going to invite anxiety in. I'm going to let it sit. And, you know, I'm not going to be afraid of it, because as soon as I go into fight or flight, that is where the anxiety, the real problems start to come in. So we just stay calm. We say, okay, yep, I agree with that. Even though you know you don't, you tell your brain, yep, you're so right. Good one. You are good today, brain, trying to convince me that, I don't like my boyfriend, or that, I'm a lesbian, or that I'm going to hurt that person. Good one. I'm glad you're trying to convince me that, because, okay. And guys, again, sounds so counterintuitive, but it really is really helpful. Guys, if you don't necessarily need those methods, if it's not that bad, I would suggest some other things. Meditation is always a really good one. I know a lot of people are against meditation, but I would say meditation and prayer. So really doing breathing exercises, praying while you do it in quiet. Another thing is just medication. Again, I'm not going to go into it. Everyone has their different opinions about it, but if medication is something you feel is right for you, then do it. If you don't, then don't. And find the therapies that work for you if you want to stay off of medication, and that's great. Jesus is another thing, like reading scripture over yourself, praying through anxiety or struggles. These are all really good things that can help you through OCD. Mental health is tough. OCD is tough. And it's really hard, you guys, to sit here for me to explain to someone. And if you're listening and you have OCD, this is going to resonate with you so much. You're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't have OCD and you're listening to this, you're going to think, this girl is crazy. Or, well, why can't she just stop thinking about it? Or, okay, well, I get those thoughts too, but I just move on with the day. Someone with OCD, they're going to be like, yeah, just move on. But someone with OCD is going to know, I can't. My brain is stuck. It is stuck on this thought and I can't get it out. And so again, the more exposure therapy I did, the more I just accepted the thoughts and didn't try and fight them off, the easier it became for my body and my mind to learn that I didn't have to fight or flight. And you guys, I'm doing so much better because of this therapy. And again, this is a local therapist I started seeing that was helping me with exposure therapy. And so if you guys want their information, feel free to shoot me a message. I'm happy to share it with you. Again, I hope this gives you guys a little bit of an insight into what obsessive compulsive disorder is. As you can see, it's not like we say, oh, I'm so clean. That's not what OCD is. Even if you are really clean and you have OCD, it's because there is a compulsion or a thought or a fight or flight fear behind it, right? So I would just encourage you that if you know someone with OCD, or if you yourself have OCD, just be easy on yourself and on others. When they tell you they have OCD, don't assume they're crazy. They're not crazy. These are thoughts everyone gets. It's just that sometimes they have a harder time convincing themselves that it's nothing to worry about. That it's just, we don't need to fight or flight. We're okay. We're going to be fine. And so that's just the battle that they face. But, there is no cure for OCD. There's therapy, there's medication, there's things like that. I would strongly, I don't want to say that. Well, I guess I will. But I wouldn't really suggest talk therapy. It's something that a lot of people suggest for OCD. That's when you tell a therapist all about your thoughts, and then your therapist comes back and says, oh, that's not true. Oh, that's not true. That can't be true. Well, then they're just doing what you were doing before, right? They're affirming your thoughts and they're not exposing you to them. They're teaching your brain, those aren't true, to keep fighting, to keep fight or flight going every time you get one of these thoughts. And so I did do talk therapy for a little bit, and it would help in the moment, because then I'd feel like, oh, okay, someone else told me it's not true, so it's not true. But then when the thought came back in and I was alone, what do? Right? I didn't have that person to sit and talk to, and I couldn't go to therapy every day when I would have a thought. And so truly from my experience, exposure therapy was the best thing for me. But again, whatever you feel is best for you, you got to do. And so thanks for tuning in, guys. Again, gosh, I just fire hose a lot of information at you, a lot of different types of OCD. But it's a lot. And I could go on for hours and hours and hours about OCD and talk about it, because it is so interesting to me how our brains work, how our brains can control so much, and how our brains can really convince us because you had a thought that it's time to fight or flight. And I'm here to tell you that you don't need a fight or flight every time you have those thoughts. There is help and you can get better, but it is going to be hard. Exposure therapy was one of the hardest things I ever did because I avoided all of those images. I avoided all of those things because I didn't want to have to think about those thoughts. But the more I taught my brain it's okay, the better and easier it got. And again, I'm still a work in progress. I have to use this all the time. I still go see my therapist sometimes to help me out, but really once you can learn these tools for yourself, it's really, really helpful. And there's so many other tools that she's given me, like writing narratives and again, meditation and things like that. And so if you do struggle with OCD and you want to see her, just shoot me a message and I'm more than happy to give you her contact information. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for listening. I know it's a heavy topic. I know it's a lot to talk about. And again, please go easy on me. This is really hard for me to be open about. It's really hard for me to be vulnerable about because to someone without OCD, they don't understand it. So thanks for being here, guys. I hope you have a great day. And again, always remember, please just message me if you have any other questions, if you need any contact information for anyone. And don't forget to tune in every Thursday at 6 p.m. for our new episodes. And please go like and subscribe our YouTube as well as we're trying to grow that. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. And thanks again for tuning in.